I'm your boyfriend, George Strombolopoulos. Earlier, when I had mentioned that I was limbered up and I was a bit stretchy, it's because we had a bit of an odd start. We have, as you can tell, we have a studio audience here tonight. We like to call them our friends, all sort of hanging out. I had to actually, for the first time in a long time, I had to throw a guy out of the audience. I'd throw him out of the studio. I normally wouldn't do that. Here's what happens. To get into our audience, not unlike a political rally, you have to register for it, right? But then I was on this guy's Facebook page, and I thought, who's he friends with? And I saw this guy had a picture of himself with Ben Mulrooney. And listen, my staff pointed him out to me. Not my fault, even though I'm the guy. My staff pointed him out to me at the staff, and they threw him out. Because his Facebook picture was inappropriate. So the guy who decided to come to this show, even though he clearly has no problem hanging with Ben Mulrooney, I got to say this to you, Mansbridge, you're not welcome here anymore. All right, day 12 of the campaign. Let's go.
One more time with feeling.
Because your Facebook profile, you get kicked out of a rally? For another day. 26 days until we choose our next government. Could be the current government, could be a version of the current government, could be a completely different government. Voting day, I want a quick piece of advice for everybody here. Give it for you. Vote early. Don't do what Al Capone said off the top of our show, vote often, because that's illegal. And also, just a bad thing to do. But go and vote early. If you can, if you know who you're going to vote for. Me, I don't know. I can never use an advance poll because I don't know who I'm going to vote for. I leave it right up to the last minute. Because what if they say something stupid on the last day, right? And I can't get behind it. I wait right. I'm checking Twitter right into the booth. Like, right, because I'm not going to come out, all right, you said what? So, but if you know an advance poll, the last thing you want to do is get stuck in traffic, right? Especially because I know how people go, because I'm that guy, you're that person. Oh, late for dinner, I had to work late, and by the time you eat and maybe get the kids to bed, you're tired. No, it's too late to go to the polls. It's already resolved by now. Then the next day you wake up and you find out that your riding was decided by one vote. Your vote. Guaranteed to happen. I make that guarantee right now. In every riding across the country, your vote makes it. It's not true, but I'm going with it. Make sure you vote. There's an awful lot at stake here, and I'm not that earnest guy going, telling you how to live your life. I'm not. It's just when you don't vote, it screws it up for the rest of us, okay? Because it's embarrassing when we have low voter turnout. We've had low voter turnout. Healthcare is important. The economy is important. We know that. But you know what is not really being talked about as much, and I want to talk about this and why I think it's important? Public transit. I know public transit is not as sexy as accountability, or it doesn't have the long, lean legs of fighter jets, which people like to talk about, or long gun registries, guns, and they're long, innuendo, right? I get they're not as sexy, but public transit's a big deal. It affects an awful lot of people in this country. Just to put it in perspective, I know we're the true north, strong and free, we're this glorious land with lots of Canadian shield and wildlife. You know that 80% of us live in urban areas. 80% of Canadians live in urban areas, and 1/3 of the population of this country lives in Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal. 1/3 lives in 3 places. Cities elect a majority of the MPs. You know who knows this better than anybody? Mayors of cities. Naheed Nenshi from Calgary. Here's what he says.
I would love to see the federal government start talking about public transit as well as affordable housing as major national priorities, to set aside either money or tax mechanisms so that cities can be assured of having funding.
That's it. He is bang on. And he's not alone. Mayors all across the country are calling on the federal government to do more for public transit. Now, public transit, the way it works is a lot of the newspapers in this, certainly in Toronto, they see one subway driver falling asleep at the wheel, or they pick a fight with the union, and it becomes this whole thing about, in the same way they go after teachers, right? They just like to go after, the working person for the most part. But those are isolated incidences. You look at how important it is in a city, you know how bad it can be if the transit's not working problem. You need traffic to be managed. And we're not going to build more roads. We're not going to widen the roads. You can't really widen, so you need better public transportation. How frustrating is it to be stuck on a bus, especially if you have what are we called social issues, where you're not good with people. Let me demonstrate, if I can, with our bobblehead leaders who've made a return. All right, bum bum. Please welcome, dum dum, our bobblehead leaders, bum bum, bum bum, and the other guy. All right. So, imagine it's rush hour. Let's pick the blue-collar citizen. All right, obviously. The blue-collar citizen even though they don't get the votes of the blue-collar people, technically that's how they market themselves, right? And Blue's like, oh, I'm a blue-collar guy. I want lots of stuff for the country. I don't know how I'm going to pay for it, but I want it anyway. So this guy's trying to get to work, right? So normally this guy would ride his bicycle to work, but it's winter, and let's be honest, unless you're that guy in the front cover of an outdoors magazine, you're not taking the bike. So you take the bus. So you get on the bus, right? And you get on the bus, and then right beside you, you probably got one of these guys, right? So this guy's right here. So this guy, and you know this guy, social skills, not so much. A bit awkward. Don't let the thumbs up fool you, right? This is a bit awkward. And then all of a sudden, here comes the other guy beside you in the bus, Mr. Smarty Pants, right? Oh, I know everything, I know. This guy hasn't been on this bus for 30 years. Now suddenly he's back. And he knows everything about what the bus needs, right? And then all of a sudden this guy shows up, and truthfully, you'd think he'd rather just split the bus in half or have his own bus and drive in another direction altogether. But you're all of a sudden crammed on, and then, God love you, for 1 second, you think you're going to survive the bus ride. You think you got it. And then there's that, you can see it in the window, right? There's that one person running for the bus, right? And they get in, and one person's just trying to get in the bus. Please let me on the bus. And then they're all like, sorry, ma'am, there's no room for you on the bus. You have to wait for the next debate. I mean election, I mean bus, I mean metaphor. We need to fix public transit in this country. And there's numbers for it. To be honest, I was gonna reenact the scene from Sex and the City 2, but I wouldn't want to debase even a politician with that dialogue. Okay, here's why the transit system is important. There's also numbers to back it up. The Toronto Board of Trade ranked 24 cities around the world, 24 cities around the world on their transit systems. You know who has the worst commute times? Montreal, Toronto. As far as overall transportation, not one Canadian city made the top 10. Not one. Montreal 12, Toronto 19, Vancouver first in the NHL standings, 21st on these, right? Well, you wooed the hockey, but you didn't boo the subway. That's our problem. We're easily distracted by ice and skates. Now, our cities are way behind places like Tokyo, Paris, London, New York. They're all more efficient than us. Even Hong Kong. In Hong Kong, you gotta say that's, in terms of size, half the size of Toronto, twice the population. They still get everyone where they need to go. We are speeding towards a transit crisis, which is the only time you're going to hear the phrase speeding and transit in the same sentence. How do we fix it? We need a national transit plan. We need one. And I'm not talking about, oh, urban, rural, and, oh, the big city folks, the elitists, like some governments like to call us elitists. We're not elitists. We just want to get to work. And you know who normally doesn't have cars? You know who normally doesn't have, right? There are, yes, true, people who are into the environment, but also people who can't afford cars. Cars are expensive. Right? So we need a national transit plan. Other developed countries have one. Right now, half the federal gas tax goes to cities. How about all of it goes there for public transit? That's another $2 billion a year. More people on trains and buses. It does help the environment, especially if we have the electric and hybrid buses. Less air pollution, which means your kids probably have less asthma. And we talked about how expensive it is to own a car. You've got the payments, maintenance, insurance, gas. That's hundreds of dollars a month. Hundreds. Unless you're one of the dragons from Dragon's Den. That's like thousands of dollars a month. They have nice cars. Plus, with everybody giving you the finger all the time, it's barely worth it. Better public transit. And I'll tell you something, transit needs to be a lot more fun. May I suggest something like this?
Back inside a train is too crowded to complain on the subway.
Subway! You can use your pencil. You might do something worse on the subway. Subway!
Although in defense of our government leaders here, infrastructure is a lot easier when you have only one street that you have to deal with. Sesame Street. That's your debrief.